Static. Log entry 937. Final. The ship is dead. The Geller field flickered for less than a second, but it was enough. The things are scratching at the hull now, but they are the least of my concerns. The true enemy is the knowledge I now carry. It is a weight far heavier than this dying black ship. So listen. Listen to this warning from a dead man. If you have recovered this data slate, if you are hearing my voice now, then your first and only duty to the God Emperor is to destroy it. Do not listen further. Do not attempt to transcribe it. Erase this log, purge the data slate with sanctified flame, and pray you have not already heard too much. This knowledge is not a weapon. It is a disease of the soul, a mimetic plague that once understood cannot be forgotten. It is the map of a place that should not be, and the simple act of seeing the map is to be lost within it forever. But I know the minds of my kind. I know the hubris of the scholar, the desperate curiosity of the inquisitor. You will not destroy. My name is, or was, Lex Artificer Valerius Borja, seconded to the Ordo Malleus. My mission was to study the nature of demonic incursions, to codify the unclassifiable, to apply the cold logic of imperial science to the madness of the Imperium. I sought to create a definitive text on the nature of what our predecessors called demon worlds. This document, this Codex Infernus, is the fruit of that labor. It is a compilation of data gathered from 100 different doomed expeditions, of the final screaming confessions of captured heretics, and of my own terrible direct observations from the cracked viewport of this dying ship. It is an attempt to create a survival guide for a place where survival is a logical impossibility. I sought to map the landscape of hell, to categorize its flora and fauna, to understand the psychological torments it inflicts upon the mortal soul. I believed that by understanding the enemy, we could better defeat it. That was my folly, that was my sin. For you cannot understand the warp without a part of the warp beginning to I. Let us first dispense with the crude, superstitious notions held by the common man, and even by many within the holy ordos. A demon world is not a planet suffering from a demonic infestation. It is not a world where the veil between realities has grown thin, allowing the creatures of the warp to spill through. Such worlds are merely sick. They are battlegrounds. A demon world is something far more terrible. It is a world that has already lost the war, a world whose very soul has been consumed and whose physical form has been repurposed. It is not a house that is haunted by a ghost. It is a corpse that has been possessed, its flesh and bone, now the puppet of a monstrous alien will. Think of it as a form of cosmic cancer. A world is a body of stable matter existing within the predictable laws of our reality. A demon is a being of pure, chaotic emotion, existing within the impossible, ever-changing tides of the warp. When a world falls completely to the ruinous powers, a terrible metastasis occurs. Apiece, on such a world, the predictable universe you know ceases to exist. The laws of physics are not just broken, they are replaced by the whims of the entity that the world has become. Gravity might be a function not of mass, but of despair. The more hopeless you feel, the heavier the very ground becomes, seeking to pull you down into its suffocating embrace. Time may not flow in a linear fashion. A man might live and die in the space of a single heartbeat, while a moment of agony is stretched into an eternity. The very landscape is a direct physical manifestation of the patron god's nature. On a world belonging to Khorne, the god of blood, the mountains may be made of screaming, compacted skulls, and the rivers will flow with fresh, hot blood, not water. On a world of Tzeentch, the architect of fate, the ground may be a shifting, crystalline labyrinth whose corridors rearrange themselves with every thought, and the sky a kaleidoscope of lies. A demon world is not a place. It is a state of being. It is an idea, an emotion, rage, despair, ambition, desire, given a planetary body, a living, breathing concept, whose very existence is a blasphemy against the ordered material universe. This leads to the final, most terrifying truth. The world itself is conscious and it hates you. You are not an explorer on a hostile planet. You are a foreign microbe, a single insignificant bacterium crawling on the skin of a vast, thinking, and utterly malevolent god. The ground you walk upon does not just hold you up. It feels your footsteps, it tastes your fear, and it longs for your destruction. The air you breathe is not just a mixture of gases. It is the exhalation of a demonic being, and it whispers temptations and madness directly into your soul. The screaming mountains do not just make noise, they scream your name, they whisper your deepest shames, they recount your most secret failures. To set foot on a demon world is to enter into a dialogue with the entity itself, a dialogue in which you are the insignificant prey, and the entire planet is the predator. You cannot fight it with a bolter or a chainsword, for you cannot kill a planet. You cannot reason with it, for its thoughts are a hurricane of madness. You cannot hide from it, for you are already inside it. The moment you arrive, you have already lost. The only question that remains is how and in what exquisitely terrible fashion the world itself will choose to devour your body and your soul. To understand these hells, we must dissect them one by one, and so we shall begin with the most direct and brutally honest of these realms. Let us journey into the heart of pure, unadulterated rage. Let us explore the domain of the blood god. Let us begin our descent. Of all the hells that fester in the warp, the realm of the blood god is the most honest. It offers no seduction, no false hope, no complex riddle to be solved. Its nature is singular, its purpose absolute. It is a monument to the eternal, glorious, and exquisitely simple act of murder. To enter a world claimed by Khorne is to step into a universe where every natural law has been rewritten to serve the cause of endless bloody conflict. The moment you arrive, you will notice the sky. It is not blue or black or grey. It is the raw, visceral, and pulsating crimson of a freshly opened wound. There is no sun, no moon, no stars. The only light is this terrible, burning red glare that emanates from the very fabric of the heavens, a sky that is eternally bleeding. The air itself is an assault. It is hot, dry, and carries the sharp, coppery tang of spilled blood and the acrid smell of rusted metal. To breathe it is to feel a nascent primal rage begin to smolder in your own heart, a topic we will explore in greater detail later. The ground beneath your feet is not soil or rock. It is a vast, unending desert of pulverized bone and jagged shards of corroded brass. Entire mountain ranges are formed from the fossilized, compacted skeletons of 1 billion fallen armies, their peaks the skulls of ancient, forgotten warlords. The valleys are littered with the broken, rusted armor of 1 million different species, a testament to the fact that Khorne cares not from where the blood flows, only that it flows. The landscape is a geological graveyard, a testament to a war that has been raging since the dawn of time. There is water on a Khornate world, but it is not the water of life. Great sluggish rivers carve their way through the bone deserts, and vast churning oceans stretch to the horizon. But these are rivers and oceans of fresh, hot blood. They are not stagnant pools. They churn and heave with a life of their own, as if 1 billion new throats are being slit every second to feed them. From their steaming surfaces rises a thick red mist that blankets the land, a fog that carries with it the faint, echoing screams of every warrior who has ever died in battle. To fall into these waters is not to drown, but to be boiled alive, your flesh stripped from your bones by the sheer unholy heat and the voracious iron-jawed demonic creatures that swim in their sanguine depths. And at the very center of this brutal, blood-soaked world, a focal point of the carnage stands the Brass Fortress. It is a citadel of impossible brutalist scale, its walls miles high, its ramparts crenellated with sharpened bones, and its great cannons perpetually firing volleys of screaming skulls into the bleeding sky. The fortress itself sits atop the single greatest mountain on the entire planet. The Skull Throne's peak, a mountain made not of rock, but of the skulls of Khorne's most favored champions from every race and every age. It is a constantly growing monument. Its slopes a chaotic landslide of bone, as legions of lesser demons, the bloodletters ceaselessly work to add new worthy skulls to the pile, the head of a fallen space marine hero, the massive cranium of a defeated orc war boss, the crystalline skull of a slain Eldari Farseer. And high atop it all, visible as a point of pure divine rage, even from the planet's orbit, sits the Skull Throne itself. It is upon this throne of death that the blood god Khorne, a being of pure, concentrated and eternal fury, resides, his gaze sweeping across his perfect kingdom, a kingdom where the only law is to kill and the only prayer is the scream of the dying. A world of Khorne is not an empty stage for violence. It is a thriving, horrifying ecosystem populated by entities whose sole purpose is to perpetuate the great bloody work of their god. The native inhabitants, if one could call them that, are the Daemons, the literal spawn of the blood god's own incandescent rage. The most numerous of these are the bloodletters. To see them is to see a nightmare of medieval warfare given animate, hateful form. They are the rank and file of rage, the perfect infantry of murder. They stalk the great plains of powdered bone in disciplined, silent legions, their skin the color of dried blood, their horned heads constantly turning as their burning, hate-filled eyes scan for any sign of weakness. In their hands they carry hell-blade swords of black iron that are not merely sharp, but are solidified malice weapons capable of severing not just the flesh, but the soul of their victims. They do not march to conquer territory. They march to find a fight their existence, a constant, unending patrol for new skulls to claim. Accompanying them are the flesh hounds, the hunting dogs of the blood god, great powerful beasts of muscle and brass, their collars jingling with a sinister metallic sound as they lope across the plains, their preternatural senses able to track the scent of fear from a mile away. And high above, soaring on great leathery wings, are the greater demons, the bloodthirsters, the living avatars of Khorne's own fury. They are a towering, bull-headed monstrosity. Their roars a physical shockwave of pure rage that can shatter rock and boil blood in the veins, their great axes and whips capable of felling a titan. They are the generals, the champions, the undisputed lords of this realm of endless slaughter. Far more tragic, however, are the mortal inhabitants. These are the unlucky souls, the shipwrecked voidsmen, the captured soldiers, the remnants of populations from worlds that have been dragged into the warp and claimed by Khorne. They are not immediately killed and offered up to the Skull Throne. That would be a waste of potential bloodshed. Instead, they are given a new purpose. They become the participants in a single planet-wide and eternal gladiatorial tournament. The rage-inducing atmosphere and the constant unending pressure to kill or be killed quickly burns away their former identities. A disciplined Imperial guardsman's faith and loyalty are scoured from his soul by a new all-consuming bloodlust. A cunning Eldari ranger's grace and subtlety are replaced by a crude, savage fury. They are no longer human or Eldari or Tau. They are simply the Skull Takers, a writhing, desperate mass of mortals whose only function is to provide a constant spectacle of violence for the demons who are their audience and their masters. They fight in great natural arenas in pits carved from mountains of bone or in chaotic running melees that sweep across the blood-soaked plains. Their weapons are the crude, broken implements of their former lives, a sharpened piece of armor, a jagged rock, the femur of a fallen rival. They do not fight for freedom, for the very concept of a life without battle has been erased from their minds. They fight for the simple, brutal approval of their god. To kill an opponent and hold their severed head aloft is the only act of worship, the only form of prayer that exists in this realm. The reward for success is simply the chance to fight again. A particularly successful mortal, a champion who has claimed 1,000 skulls, might attract the direct gaze of Khorne himself. Their reward for such prowess is not release, but a final, terrible transformation, their body either twisted into the mindless, raging form of a chaos spawn, or elevated to the status of a chaos champion, a being of immense power, now forever a slave to the rage that has consumed them. The scholar's voice in the recording becomes heavy, a tone of academic pity. The mortal inhabitants of a Khornate world are not prisoners in the conventional sense. They are the ultimate converts. They have been stripped of all that they were and have become a perfect, if debased, reflection of the god they now serve. Their tragedy is not that they are trapped in hell, but that they have, in the end, learned to call it home. To comprehend the true horror of a Khornate demon world, one must understand that the greatest threat is not the demons that walk upon it, but the very air you breathe. The atmosphere of such a world is not merely a composition of gases. It is a psychoactive, etheric medium, the very essence of the blood god's own eternal fury given gaseous form. The first breath a mortal takes in this realm is an act of spiritual self-immolation. It does not feel like air. It feels like inhaling fire, a searing coppery heat that does not just fill your lungs, but ignites your entire nervous system with a jolt of pure, undiluted aggression. Every subsequent breath fans these embers, stoking the fires of a rage that will eventually consume all that you are. This is the most insidious of the realm's traps. A mortal upon arrival will be filled with the natural, logical emotions of fear and a desperate will to survive. You will see the legions of bloodletters and you will feel terror. You will suffer a wound from a hellblade and you will feel agony. But these sensations are fleeting, for they are impurities in this perfect kingdom of rage. The psychic pressure of the environment itself is a constant grinding force that seeks to transmute all other emotions into its own singular perfect form. The terror you feel when faced with a charging bloodthirster will last, but a second before it is overwhelmed and transformed into a suicidal, insane urge to meet its charge, to prove your own martial prowess, to spit in the eye of a god of war. The searing, soul-shattering pain of a wound is quickly replaced by a white-hot, blinding fury, a rage that makes you ignore the severed limb or the gushing artery, your only thought to strike back to kill the thing that has dared to harm you. Imagine the experience of a newly damned soul, a disciplined imperial guardsman finding himself on these plains of bone. His first thoughts are of his training, his duty, his faith. For the Emperor, I must find cover, I must survive. But as he breathes the hate-filled air, these complex thoughts begin to fray. After the first skirmish, after the first wound, his thoughts will have changed. The pain, my arm is broken, I must kill it, I must make it pay. His long-term goal of survival is being replaced by the short-term, all-consuming need for vengeance. After an hour in this realm, his higher brain functions the seat of his reason, his loyalty and his very identity will have been burned away completely. His thoughts will be a simple percussive and unending mantra of pure animalistic aggression. Blood, kill, skulls, more, blood, kill, skulls. This is the ultimate psychological torment of Khorne's domain. You are not just a prisoner in a physical hell, you are a passenger in your own body, which has been hijacked by the world's own eternal rage. You do not fight to survive, for survival implies a future, a goal, a desire to live. On a world of Khorne, these concepts are meaningless. You are not fighting for a cause. You are not fighting for your life. You are fighting because you can do nothing else. Your arms swing the axe, your legs carry you into the charge, and your throat bellows a war cry, not because you have chosen to, but because the very air you breathe, the very ground you stand on, the very sky that bleeds above you commands it. You cease to be a person. you become an instrument, a fist that the planet itself uses to beat against its other inhabitants, a mindless screaming component in a perpetual motion machine of slaughter. Your agency is the first casualty, your soul the second. The true curse is not that you will be forced to fight and die, but that you will be remade into a thing that desires nothing else. A mortal mind, when faced with an existential threat, will cling to a single desperate concept: survival. Is it possible then to survive on a world of Khorne? The answer, according to the grim calculus of this realm, is a literal yet utterly meaningless yes. But it is a form of survival so debased, so utterly stripped of purpose and hope, that it becomes a curse far worse than a clean, swift death. It is the fool's hope, a path that leads not to escape, but to a more perfect form of damnation. Consider the fate of a being of immense strength, and will a captured space marine perhaps cast into one of the great gladiatorial pits? His training, his superhuman physique, and his iron discipline would serve him well. He would fight initially to survive, to uphold his oaths, to defy the hell into which he has been cast. And he would be good at it. He would kill the lesser skull-takers with a cold, contemptuous efficiency. He would perhaps even best a bloodletter in single combat, his fury a match for the demon's own. For a day, a week, maybe even a year he could survive. He could become the undisputed champion of his pit, his personal mound of claimed skulls growing into a small hill, his name a guttural roar on the lips of the demonic spectators. But what is the price of this survival with every breath of the rage-filled air? With every kill, a part of him dies. His disciplined combat doctrine devolves into a savage, brutal frenzy. His prayers to the Emperor are replaced by bellowed, wordless roars of pure bloodlust. The part of him that was a noble warrior, a protector of humanity, is scoured away and replaced by a simple, honorless killer. He is no longer fighting to uphold his duty. He is fighting because he has, over time, learned to love the act of killing for its own sake. To survive in the realm of the Blood God is to become a perfect disciple of the Blood God. The hell does not break you. It converts you. You do not conquer your environment. Your environment conquers your soul. And even this debased form of survival is fleeting. There is always a bigger, stronger, and more furious opponent. The champion's success is a beacon, a challenge. His growing pile of skulls will inevitably attract the attention of a true champion of Khorne, a hulking 8-foot-tall skull reaper, or a demon prince whose favor with the Blood God is absolute. Or in the ultimate expression of this realm's logic, it might attract the gaze of a bloodthirster, a greater demon, a being whose rage is a fragment of the god's own. The battle that follows is not a contest. It is an execution. The mortal champion, for all his newfound savagery and strength, is as a child before a giant. He will be struck down, his reign of slaughter brought to an abrupt and bloody end. And in this final violent moment, the ultimate truth is revealed. His death is the only victory this realm offers. As his skull is torn from his spine and held aloft by his superior foe, his purpose is fulfilled. His skull will be carried to the great mountain and added to the throne, another meaningless brick in a monument to a mad god's glory. There is no escape from a Khornate world. There is no long-term survival. There is only a temporary, bloody, and ultimately pointless climb up a pyramid of corpses, a journey that ends as it must, with you becoming just another part of the foundation. The scholar's voice on the recording takes on a final, weary tone of warning. Do not seek to survive here, for that path leads only to monstrosity. Seek only a swift and final end. It is the only mercy you will find in the kingdom of the Blood God. The scholar's voice returns the crackle of static on the recording, now seeming to carry a new, more frantic energy. If the realm of the Blood God was a brutal, honest scream, he begins his breathing shallow. Then the domain of Tzeentch, the architect of fate, is a whispered, intricate lie that has no beginning and no end. Here the enemy is not the blade in the hand of a demon. It is the very ground beneath your feet, the very air in your lungs, the very thoughts in your own mind. It is a hell designed not for the body, but for the fundamental principles of logic and reason. To describe the landscape of a Tzeentchian demon world is to attempt to describe a dream. There are no fixed points. The ground you walk upon is a vast, ever-changing and self-rearranging crystalline labyrinth. A great jagged mountain of what appears to be blue crystal might stand before you, but as you begin to climb, its substance may flow like water its peak, inverting to become a bottomless chasm. A straight, clear path through a forest of crystalline trees will inevitably fold in on itself, leading you after hours of walking back to the exact point where you started. But now the trees are weeping tears of molten silver, and the path is upside down. The crystal itself is a repository of mad knowledge. To look into its multifaceted surface is to see not your own reflection, but the reflections of 1,000 different versions of yourself that could have been you as a hero of the Imperium, you as a traitor, you as a king, you as a beggar. It is a constant, unending assault of lost potential and regret. The rivers and lakes of this realm are not made of water or blood, but of something far more insidious liquid causality. The scholar's voice grows strained as he describes them. They are rivers of what if, of possibilities that never were. To drink from their shimmering, rainbow-hued waters is to be flooded with the perfect, complete memories of a life you never lived. You might experience a lifetime of peaceful love with a woman you never met, or the glorious death of a hero in a battle that never happened. The influx of this false history is a poison to the soul, an informational overload that shatters the psyche, leaving its victims as drooling, catatonic wrecks, lost forever in the beautiful, terrible memory of a life that was never theirs. But the greatest horror is the sky. There is no sun, no day or night. The sky is a single vast and constantly churning kaleidoscope of impossible colors, hues that the human eye was not meant to process, colors that evoke emotions for which there are no words. The stars are not fixed points of light, but are constantly in motion, coalescing into vast, complex, and ever-shifting runes, the secret glyphs of Tzeentch's own arcane language. To look upon the sky is to read a book of infinite, forbidden lore. The constellations whisper directly into your mind, not with sound, but with pure, unfiltered comprehension. One moment they might form a pattern that reveals the true secret name of a powerful demon lord. The next they might shift to show you the precise, agonizing details of your own death. They might reveal the secrets of how to build an engine that can bend time, or the one single devastating lie that could bring down the entire Adeptus Terra. This knowledge, however, is a cancer. The mortal mind was not built to contain such truths. Every secret you learn is a new crack in the foundations of your sanity. The truth does not set you free here, it utterly and completely destroys you. You are a scholar in an infinite library where every book is a curse, and the very act of reading is an act of self-destruction. The landscape of Tzeentch's realm is not designed to kill your body, but to break your mind, to overload it with so much information, so much possibility and so much truth that it simply and finally shatters under the weight of it all. The living, shifting labyrinth of Tzeentch is populated by beings as mutable and as insane as the realm itself. They are the demons of the architect of fate, the living embodiments of change, and they are not so much inhabitants as they are expressions of the world's own chaotic will. The most common are the horrors, and to see them is to witness raw, joyful madness given physical form. They are not stable creatures. They are in a state of constant bubbling and cackling flux. A pink horror, a being of rubbery flesh and manic glee, might bound towards you on a single leg, sprout a dozen leering faces from its torso, melt into a puddle of iridescent slime, and then reform as a shrieking bird-like creature wreathed in pink fire, all in the space of a few seconds. Their existence is a constant gleeful mockery of the very concept of a fixed physical form. When struck, they do not simply die. They explode in a puff of warp energy and divide into two smaller, angrier, and perpetually grumpy blue horrors, a living, frustrating paradox for any who would. Then there are the flamers, the living instruments of transmutation. These strange, stalk-like demons float above the crystalline ground, their multiple heads spewing gouts of the very substance of change itself, the warp fire of Tzeentch. This is not a flame that merely burns or consumes, it rewrites. The scholar's voice on the recording becomes strained, tinged with a new level of awe and terror. I witnessed one of these entities unleash its fire upon a promontory of solid, unchanging obsidian. The rock did not melt. It screamed, and then it transformed its substance, flowing and reshaping itself into a flock of 1,000 shrieking, glass-winged birds that immediately took flight and flew into the kaleidoscopic sky. In the skies themselves swim the screamers, great manta ray-like demons of living metal and teeth who patrol the etheric currents, their high-pitched cries not just a sound, but a direct psychic assault that can shred a mortal's sanity. The fate of the demons is simple. The fate of the mortals trapped in this realm is infinitely more complex and far more horrifying. They are not hunted as they would be in the realm of Khorne. They are subjected to the world's primary law: everything must change. The ambient mutagenic energy of the labyrinth constantly rewrites their physical and metaphysical forms. A mortal may go to sleep as a man and wake up to find his arm has transformed into a writhing serpentine tentacle that whispers forgotten, blasphemous secrets in his ear. A woman might watch in horror as her skin becomes a living vellum-like parchment, the story of her life rewriting itself in real time across her flesh in a language she cannot understand. A squad of lost Imperial guardsmen might stumble into a nexus of power and find their bodies melting and fusing together their individual screams, joining in a single, multi-throated cry as they become a single, writhing, amorphous blob of flesh and armor. The transformations are not limited to the physical, they are conceptual. The scholar's voice cracks the academic tone, giving way to one of a horrified witness. We had a logician with our expedition, a man named Prester, who believed he could solve the labyrinth's paradoxes. He found a riddle, an impossible self-referential equation, and for weeks he worked on it. Then one day he solved it. His reward was not escape. He screamed in a moment of pure, terrible enlightenment, and his physical body simply dissolved. He became a shimmering, weeping puddle of pure, abstract logic on the crystal floor, his consciousness now a disembodied, screaming mathematical truth. A mortal's desires and nature are turned against them in a literal way. A poet who wishes for inspiration may find his mouth sealed his body, sprouting 1,000 new mouths that all recite different beautiful and maddening verses at once. To exist in the realm of Tzeentch is to be the unwilling clay in the hands of a mad, divine artist. You are not killed. You are simply and endlessly remade. The scholar's voice on the recording is now noticeably more strained, faster, as if he is struggling to articulate his thoughts before they overwhelm him. The physical mutations are a horrifying spectacle. He says his breathing ragged, but they are merely a symptom of the true horror of this realm. In the Imperium, knowledge is power, a treasure hoarded by the powerful and forbidden to the masses. Here in the labyrinth of the Architect of Fate, knowledge is a plague. It is a weapon. It is an all-consuming, ever-present fire. It is not hidden away in secret libraries. It is ubiquitous, screaming at you from every crystal, every gust of wind, every shifting star. And that is the nature of its damnation. To exist in this realm is to be subjected to a constant, unending assault of pure information. Every object, every phenomenon is a vessel of forbidden lore, desperate to unburden itself into your mind. A mortal dying of thirst might pick up a shard of crystal that looks like ice, hoping to find moisture. But the moment his fingers touch it, his mind is not filled with the sensation of cold, but with the complete, perfect, and agonizingly detailed geological history of that single rock. He experiences its birth in the heart of a dying star. 1 billion years ago, he feels the eons of pressure that formed its crystalline structure. He witnesses its violent incorporation into the fabric of the demon world. 1 billion years of silent, inanimate existence are downloaded into his consciousness in a single mind-shattering instant, leaving him a trembling, catatonic wreck. The very air is a library of whispers. A gust of wind swirling through the crystalline canyons is not just moving air, it is a stream of secrets. As it passes a survivor's ear, it might whisper the true, unspeakable name of a greater demon, a piece of knowledge so powerful that the simple act of knowing it makes your brain feel like it's boiling in your skull. It might murmur the precise second-by-second details of how your best friend will betray and murder you 3 weeks from now, a prophecy that will fill you with a perfect, inescapable, and maddening paranoia. The ever-shifting runes in the kaleidoscopic sky are the worst of all. To gaze upon them for too long is to invite comprehension of the true, multidimensional, and utterly insane nature of the cosmos, a truth so vast and so alien that the human mind, a simple, three-dimensional instrument, cracks and shatters under the strain of trying to perceive it. The scholar's voice grows frantic. This is the true poison of Tzeentch, he pants. Our minds are not infinite vessels designed to hold the ocean of truth. They are thimbles. To be filled with even a single drop more than they are meant to hold is to be irrevocably broken. The process is a predictable clinical descent into madness. He describes the stages. The first secret you learn feels like a moment of divine revelation, a feeling of immense power. The second brings a creeping paranoia. The third begins to blur the lines between your own thoughts and the whispers of the world around you. By the 100th, your own identity, your personal memories, your name, your past, all become just another insignificant piece of data in an infinite screaming sea of information. You forget who you are because you now know everything else. The final state of a victim of this knowledge plague is not death. It is a far more terrible fate. They become catatonic, their bodies still, their eyes wide and staring, but no longer seeing the world around them. Their minds are lost forever, drowning in an internal, infinite ocean of facts, prophecies, lies, and truths. They are in a state of perfect, absolute, and agonizing comprehension of everything. They are a library that has consumed its own librarian. The scholar's voice trails off, his breathing heavy. I saw it happen. To Artificer Geminus. He looked at the sky for too long. He started laughing and then he just stopped. His eyes are still open. He knows how the galaxy will end. He knows the Emperor's true name. I think the knowledge has burned his soul to ash. The recording crackles with static, and for a moment the scholar's voice is a choked, terrified whisper. And the worst part is, I am starting to understand what he saw. The scholar's voice on the recording is now little more than a frantic, terrified whisper, the assured academic tone all but gone. Survival, he says the word catching in his throat. We cling to it. It is our most basic biological imperative. But what is survival in a place where the very concept of a stable self is the first casualty in the realm of the blood? God's survival was a descent into monstrous rage. Here in the labyrinth of the changer of ways, survival is a process of dissolution of becoming a paradox, a ghost. It is a far more subtle, and in the end, a more complete form of annihilation. The fundamental trap of this realm is a logical one. The environment is in a state of constant, unending flux. To remain static, to cling to your human form, your human memories, and your human sanity, is to declare yourself an enemy of the world's primary law. The shifting crystal walls will inevitably crush you. A river of forgotten thoughts will sweep you away and drown your consciousness. The poison of pure knowledge will shatter your rigid, unyielding mind. Therefore, the only logical path to continued existence is to adapt. To survive in a world of change, you must yourself learn to change. This adaptation is not a conscious choice, but a slow, insidious surrender, a series of compromises that eat away at your soul. A survivor faced with a corridor that loops back on itself might learn to navigate it by abandoning the principles of linear thought, a small act of mental self-mutilation that allows him to proceed. Another, to protect his mind from the screaming truths of the cosmos, might learn to empty his own memories to make space, willingly sacrificing his past to endure the present. When the ambient warp energy causes a third arm to sprout from his back, he might not see it as a horrifying mutation, but as a useful tool for climbing the shifting crystal cliffs, thus accepting the first step in the loss of his own physical form. Each compromise is a small price to pay for another hour of existence, but the debt accumulates. The scholar's voice becomes a near sob. I watched it happen to Commander Hester, a man whose will was like iron. He was determined to survive, to adapt. He learned to think in riddles, to navigate the paradoxes. He learned to let his body flow and change, to fit through the impossible shifting archways. He bartered his memories for secrets that would help him find food. After a year, I saw him again. He was a multi-limbed crystalline being, his thoughts a fractured kaleidoscope of past, present, and 1,000 possible futures. He was perfectly adapted. He was a master of his environment. The scholar pauses, his breathing a harsh, ragged sound. But was he still Commander Hester? Was the thing that stood before me a survivor? Or was it just a new kind of monster, a new feature of the landscape? The answer is the final, terrible trick of the architect of fate. The creature was no longer Hester. He had not conquered the labyrinth. He had become a part of it. His body was now as mutable as the crystals around him, his mind a shifting maze of half-truths and forgotten prophecies. He had successfully adapted to the point of total self-annihilation. He had survived by sacrificing the very self he was trying to save. The ultimate path of Tzeentch is this, the scholar whispers, his voice filled with a final, dawning horror. He offers you the tools to survive his hell, and the very act of using those tools is what transforms you piece by piece into a new, permanent and mindless fixture of it. The scholar's voice on the recording has changed again. The frantic, paranoid energy from his time in Tzeentch's labyrinth is gone, replaced by a slow, weary, and deeply unsettled monotone. If Khorne's realm is a scream of rage, and Tzeentch is a whisper of lies, he says, his voice thick and phlegmy, then the domain of Nurgle the Plague. God is a gentle, loving, and contented sigh. After the horrors of the mind, one might expect a realm of death and decay to be a silent, barren wasteland. It is not. Of all the hells, it is the one most bursting with life, and that is the most profound and terrible of its blasphemies. It is not a graveyard. It is a garden. The landscape of a Nurgle world is one of grotesque, vibrant fecundity. It is a jungle, a swamp, a paradise of pestilence. The trees are not made of wood, but of a soft, pale, fleshy substance, their great drooping branches swollen and bloated like the limbs of a drowning victim. Their bark weeps a thick yellow-white and surprisingly sweet-smelling pus that drips down to feed the teeming soil below. The leaves are covered in a rainbow of blossoming cancers and soft, velvety mosses. The flowers that bloom here are things of terrible, intricate beauty. A lily whose petals are made from the iridescent wings of 1,000 dead flies, a rose that blooms to release not a fragrance, but a gentle, shimmering cloud of infectious golden spores. The rivers do not flow with clean water or even with blood. They are slow, thick, and viscous, the color of a fresh infection, their currents choked with rotting vegetation, the bloated corpses of strange creatures, and the joyful, gurgling forms of lesser demons. To stand at their banks is to be enveloped in the realm's defining sensory signature, its smell. It is not just the foul stench of death. It is a complex, cloying, and deeply unsettling perfume. It is the sweet smell of overripe fruit, the earthy smell of a compost heap, the metallic tang of gangrene, all mixed into a single humid and inescapable aroma. And woven through it all, the constant, unchanging, and almost soothing background noise of the realm, the gentle buzzing drone of trillions upon trillions of fat, black, and utterly content flies. This is the central horror of Nurgle's domain, its cheerfulness. There is no anger here, no malice, no intricate deception. The world is not actively hostile. It does not seek to kill you with a blade or shatter your mind with a paradox. It seeks to welcome you. It seeks to embrace you. The scholar's voice is heavy with this confused terror. The very air, it feels like a warm, damp hug. The sounds are not screams, but gurgles of contentment. It is a world in a constant happy state of decay and rebirth. It is a place utterly without despair. This loving embrace is the most dangerous thing about it. The air is thick with spores that are not just inhaled, but absorbed. A small cut, a scratch from a thorny, fleshy vine will not simply become infected. It will blossom. A tiny, vibrant, and quite beautiful mushroom might sprout from the wound. A cough does not bring up blood, but a small, buzzing cloud of newborn flies. The world is not just around you. It is actively and lovingly trying to get inside you, to make you a part of its eternal hearts. The fauna of Nurgle's garden are as paradoxical as the flora. They are not the snarling predators of Khorne's domain, nor the cackling, mutable tricksters of Tzeentch's labyrinth. To an unprepared observer, they might seem almost peaceful, their existence, a slow, ponderous, and purposeful cycle that is in perfect harmony with their decaying world. The most common of these entities are the plague-bearers, the rank and file of Nurgle's demonic legions. They are gaunt, stooped figures, their skin a patchwork of greens and browns, their single cyclopean eye staring out with a profound and eternal melancholy. Their entrails hang in looped coils from the great vertical gashes in their bloated bellies. But they are not aggressive. They shamble through the fungal forests in slow, mournful processions, their heads bowed, their long, filth-encrusted swords held loosely in their grip. Their purpose is not war, but accountancy. The scholar's voice on the recording is filled with a kind of academic disbelief. They are the talisman of Nurgle, he explains. Their every waking moment is dedicated to a single impossible task, to count and categorize every new disease, every new strain of bacteria, every delightful new symptom that their grandfather creates. I managed to observe one for a full cycle. It did not roar or threaten. It simply muttered to itself in a low, droning monotone, its long, swollen tongue lolling from its mouth as it spoke. 7,492,108,006 instances of the weeping pox. Oh, a new variant of the grey rot on that fallen log. How delightful, I must add it to the list. Let me see, that makes entry number 999 billion. They are the mournful, obsessive bureaucrats of rot, and they will largely ignore a mortal intruder unless you happen to interrupt their sacred counting, at which point they will swat you aside with their plague sword with an air of weary, put-upon annoyance before resuming their eternal thankless task. In stark, joyful contrast to the gloomy plague-bearers are the Nurglings. They are the children of the plague god, and they are everywhere. They are miniature, pot-bellied, and grotesquely cheerful facsimiles of Nurgle himself, their small, mischievous faces split by wide, single-toothed grins. They swarm in chittering, giggling packs through the undergrowth, their entire existence, a never-ending cycle of playful mischief. Their play, however, is the very mechanism of the garden's spread. The scholar recounts his observation. I saw a pack of them swarm a fallen, petrified tree. They giggled and danced upon it and their very touch, the slime and filth of their tiny bodies, caused the dead wood to instantly sprout a forest of bright, colorful, and highly infectious fungi. They are the gardeners of this hellscape, and their joy is the engine of its growth. To encounter a nurgling is not to encounter a monster, but a playful, if disgusting, child. They do not seek to kill mortals, they seek to include them in their games. A survivor hiding in a ditch might find himself suddenly swarmed by a giggling pack of the tiny demons. They will not bite or claw in anger. They will cover him in what they consider to be affectionate kisses and hugs their mouths, leaving little infectious bites, their bodies smearing him with a dozen different delightful plagues. They will laugh with pure, unadulterated glee as their new playmate breaks out in a rainbow of comical weeping boils. And high above, observing this all with the gentle paternal contentment of a loving father, are the great unclean ones. They are not generals but landlords, great living mountains of diseased flesh who sit in the center of their lakes of filth, their great booming laughs echoing for miles as they watch their little children play. The horror of Nurgle's inhabitants is not their malice, for they have none. It is their love. They do not want to destroy you. They simply want you to join their happy, rotting family, an invitation that is infinitely more terrifying than any threat. The scholar's voice on the recording is now profoundly changed. It is slower, wetter, punctuated by a deep, rattling cough. The academic precision is still there, but it is layered over with a new and terrible weariness, the sound of a man describing his own damnation in real time. The true weapon of Nurgle, he begins his voice, a gurgling rasp, is not the plague that rots the flesh, but the philosophy that rots the soul. He does not seek to break your will with pain. He seeks to gently, lovingly, and patiently persuade it to surrender. For a mortal trapped in the garden of Nurgle, the process begins with an onslaught of pure physical agony. The spores in the air, the bacteria in the water, the touch of a single giggling Nurgling, all are vectors for 1,000 different diseases. Your body becomes a walking textbook of pathology. Your lungs fill with the weeping pox, each breath a struggle through a sea of phlegm. Your skin blossoms with the glass plague, becoming a brittle, transparent shell through which you can see your own organs slowly putrefying. Your bones ache with the deep, grinding pain of corpse rot. Your initial reaction is the natural one-terror agony and a desperate, screaming prayer for it all to end, for the sweet, simple mercy of death. But death does not come. The grandfather is far too generous for that. Your body, animated by his foul vitality, refuses to expire. It rots, but it regenerates. It collapses, but it endures. And in this state of unending, agonizing limbo, the whispers begin. They do not come from the air, but from within your own feverish mind, from the heart of your own suffering. It is a gentle, paternal, and infinitely patient voice, the voice of Nurgle himself. Oh, my poor, suffering child, it croons a lullaby in a hurricane of pain. Why do you struggle so? Why do you fight what is natural? The pain you feel is not an enemy. It is the feeling of life, of change of your body, teeming with 1 billion tiny new lives. Is that not a miracle? The voice is a balm on a burning soul. It does not threaten, it soothes. You fear this decay, it continues, a note of gentle disappointment in its tone. You fear the end. But there is no end here, only a beautiful, endless cycle. The flesh rots, but from it new fungi will bloom. The bone turns to dust, but from it new flies will be born. Is that not a form of immortality? To become a part of the great, ever-churning process of life itself. The logic is a terrible, insidious poison. It reframes your agony, not as a curse, but as a form of participation in something grand and beautiful. And then comes the final, irresistible offer. Your despair, it is such a heavy, useless burden. Let it go. Cease your struggle. Accept this gift. Accept the rot. Accept the pain. Accept that this is your new reality, a world without the fear of death, without the struggle for a meaningless future. There is a great, profound comfort in simply giving up. In that surrender, you will find a peace you have never known. For a mind that has been stretched to the breaking point by unending physical torment, this offer is salvation. The will to fight erodes. The desperate struggle for survival begins to feel like the true source of the suffering. And so you let go. The pain does not vanish, but it ceases to matter. It becomes a familiar, constant background noise like the buzzing of the flies. The despair, once a crushing, terrifying weight, becomes a warm, heavy, and strangely comforting blanket. You have not overcome your suffering. You have simply and finally accepted it as the new and permanent condition. The scholar's voice is now a slow, wet, and gurgling whisper. The frantic energy is gone. The academic curiosity is gone, replaced by a profound and deeply unsettling calm. Survival, he drones the word, seeming to take a great effort. A curious concept. It implies the continuation of the self, a victory over circumstance. In the grandfather's garden, there is no such victory. You do not survive. You are composted, and you learn to love the warmth of your own decay. This is the final terrible gift of Nurgle. Once a mortal has fully surrendered to the comforting blanket of despair, once they have ceased their pointless struggle against the pain and the rot, their transformation enters its final stage. The chaotic cycle of decay and regeneration finds a perfect, horrifying equilibrium. Your body becomes eternally diseased, but also eternally resilient. You do not die. In fact, you can no longer die. You have been granted the gift of immortality. The pain, once an all-consuming fire, fades to a dull, distant, and almost pleasant thrum. Your senses are numbed, your mind is becalmed. You have achieved a state of perfect, deathless stagnation. But what of the self that has survived? It is a ghost, a faded memory that soon dissipates entirely. The memories of your past life, your family, your name, your duties, your hopes, your fears, all become meaningless, distant data like the history of an insect you once read about. They have no emotional weight, no relevance to your new, simpler existence. Your complex, chaotic human personality is slowly and gently eroded, and in its place, a new, far simpler purpose is allowed to bloom. Your obsession with your own suffering is replaced by a new, singular, and all-consuming obsession, the need to count, to categorize, to bear witness to the grandfather's infinite, bountiful creations. The scholar's voice becomes a near inaudible mumble, as if he is describing a process happening to him at that very moment. I saw one of them, a guardsman I think he was. His face, gone. Just a single sad, weeping eye. His guts were outside. He was not screaming. He was counting. He was counting the number of pustules on his own arm, his voice a low, happy drone. He had found his purpose. This is the ultimate fate. You do not survive the garden. You become a part of it. Your body and soul are recycled into the form of a plague bearer, one of the tallymen of Nurgle. You forget the man or woman you once were, and you find a new, profound, and eternal joy in your simple, sacred task. You do not survive hell. You are promoted to a permanent, tenured position on its staff. The final terrible truth of Nurgle's realm is that he does not conquer you with despair. He saves you from it, and in that salvation, he erases you completely. My name, the scholar whispers his last words on this subject, a wet, gurgling sound. My name feels so heavy, so unnecessary, so much easier to just count. The flies. There are so many beautiful flies in here. I must begin the tally, the scholar's voice returns. The recording is clearer now, the wet, gurgling sound of Nurgle's influence having receded, but it has been replaced by something far more unsettling, a breathless, ecstatic, and almost musical quality. There is a tremor in his voice, not of fear but of excitement. The garden, it was so peaceful, he whispers a hint of longing in his tone. But it was a piece of stagnation, an end. This place, this final realm, this is not an end, it is a beginning, it is a crescendo, it is the palace of sensation, the domain of Slaanesh, the dark prince of pleasure. And it is beautiful. By the throne it is so terribly, wonderfully beautiful. The landscape of a Slaaneshi demon world is not a hell of fire or decay. It is a paradise, a work of art, so perfect and so exquisitely crafted that its very beauty is an act of supreme, soul-shattering horror. The mountains are not made of rock, but of shimmering, faceted amethyst that hum with a low, melodic tone, their peaks carved into elegant, impossible spires. The forests are groves of silver-barked trees, whose leaves whisper your own secret desires on the perfumed wind. The sky is a perpetual sensual twilight of soft pinks, deep violets, and lustrous gold. It is a realm designed to appeal to every sense, to lull the soul into a state of blissful, willing surrender. But it is a lie. The scholar's voice trembles as he describes the truth beneath the beauty. You must look closer, he urges, a frantic edge to his whisper. You must always look closer. The soft, grassy meadows. The grass is fine golden hair growing from a single planet-spanning sheet of pale, living skin that twitches and ripples with pleasure at your every footstep. The beautiful exotic flowers in the gardens. Look at them. They are not petals. They are the faces of 1,000 captured Eldar, their mouths open in a silent, ecstatic scream, their eyes weeping tears of pure, perfumed nectar. The sparkling rivers do not flow with water. They flow with the distilled liquid emotions of 1 billion different souls, a current of pure joy, a tributary of exquisite sorrow, a whirlpool of maddening desire. The entire realm, he explains, is structured as a great inward spiral, a journey towards the central shimmering palace of Slaanesh himself. It is a pilgrimage through 6 concentric circles, each one a paradise dedicated to a specific form of excess, each one designed to strip away another layer of your mortal restraint. In the first circle, the circle of gluttony, you walk through orchards where the fruit tastes of your most cherished memories, and you feast at banquet tables that are themselves made of living, delicious cake. But the food is the transfigured flesh of other damned souls, and the wine is their blood, a fact that in this realm only serves to enhance the flavor. In the second circle, the circle of pride, you enter a hall of infinite perfect mirrors that reflect not what you are, but the most beautiful, powerful, and adored version of yourself you can imagine. Many are lost here, starving to death as they gaze enraptured at their own perfect reflection, unable to look away. Each circle is a new temptation, a new test. A circle of sloth where the very air is a soporific that lulls you into a blissful, eternal dream. A circle of avarice where the ground is literally paved with gold and jewels that sing your name, their touch slowly and pleasantly, transmuting your own flesh into screaming, living metal. The horror of this realm is not that it is a prison. It is that it is a paradise you will do anything to enter. It does not need to hunt you, for you will hunt it. The scholar's voice is now a breathless, panting sound. The palace. It shimmers in the center of it all. It calls to me. It promises a final, perfect, ultimate sensation. It is a temptation beyond all reason. You do not fight to survive here. You fight the part of yourself that is begging to be damned. The scholar's voice is a breathless, almost reverent whisper now, the words tumbling out in a frantic, excited rush. The inhabitants of this paradise, he gasps, they are not soldiers, they are not accountants, they are artists, and their art is sensation, their canvas is the soul, and their masterpieces are acts of exquisite, perfect agony and ecstasy. The native demons of Slaanesh's realm are the demonettes, and they are a perfect, horrifying paradox of beauty and lethality. They move through the twitching, flesh-like gardens with a dancer's grace, their forms slender, androgynous, and impossibly alluring, their every movement a symphony of seductive promise. Their skin shimmers with an internal pearlescent light, and their voices are a chorus of intoxicating whispers that promise the fulfillment of your every secret, shameful desire. To see them is to be utterly captivated, to feel a longing so profound it is a physical pain. But this beauty is a carefully crafted lure. The scholar's voice cracks with a tone of ecstatic terror. Their hands. You must look at their hands. They do not end in fingers. They end in single, sharp, elegant, and razor-edged claws, like the pincers of a crab, polished to a mirror sheen. They are weapons, but they are also instruments. He describes a scene he witnessed a demonette dancing for a captivated mortal who had fallen to his knees in worship. Her dance was a thing of sublime beauty, but with every graceful turn, one of her claws would lightly caress the man's skin, leaving behind a thin, weeping line of blood. The man did not scream in pain, he sobbed in pleasure. The dance continued a slow, intimate, and artistic evisceration, the man's pleasure growing with every new wound until he was little more than a pile of bloody ribbons at the Daemon's feet, his final expression one of perfect, agonizing fulfillment. This is the nature of the Demonette. They are not killers. They are connoisseurs of sensation, and the line between a caress and a killing blow is for them an irrelevant and uninteresting distinction. The mortal inhabitants of this realm are, if anything, even more terrifying, for they are willing participants in their own damnation. They are the sensation-seekers' souls who have dedicated themselves to the endless pursuit of new, more extreme experiences, their own bodies becoming the canvas for their terrible art. The scholar describes them with a horrified academic fascination. I saw a woman whose skin had been entirely flayed from her body, her raw, exposed nerve endings left to tingle in the perfumed, stimulating air. She wept tears of joy at the sheer, overwhelming sensation of it all. I saw a man who had replaced his own eyes with multifaceted crystalline lenses, not to see better, but simply to see more, to experience a spectrum of color that would drive a normal mind to insanity. They are beings who have pushed past the limits of pleasure and pain and now exist in a state where the two are indistinguishable. Their society is a constant competitive orgy of excess. They attend concerts where the music is the harmonized, multi-layered screams of tortured souls, a symphony of agony they find to be the most beautiful sound in the universe. They attend banquets where the courses are not food, but pure distilled emotions served in crystal vials by demonette attendants, a sip of the most profound, soul-crushing despair, followed by a taste of the most triumphant, all-consuming ecstasy. They have transcended the crude, simple pleasures of the flesh, and now seek to consume sensation in its purest, most abstract form. The scholar's voice by the end of the recording for this chapter is no longer that of a detached observer. It is filled with a terrible, envious longing. They have freed themselves from the dull, grey prison of normal human sensation. He whispers, his breath catching in his throat. They have pursued their art to its logical, absolute conclusion. Is it madness, or is it a form of enlightenment to know truly what it is to feel everything? The scholar's voice is now a fractured, breathless mess. The academic detachment is a distant memory, his words a chaotic jumble of pain, pleasure, and a terrifying, desperate longing. They gave me a taste, he pants, the sound of strange melodic chimes echoing in the background of the recording. Just a taste. A single drop of wine that held the flavor of a victory I had never won. A single note of music that contained all the beauty of a dying star. It was perfect. And in that perfection I was undone. This is the primary method of torture in the realm of the Dark Prince. It is not an assault of pain, but a relentless, overwhelming, and inescapable assault of pure, unfiltered pleasure. Upon entering one of the 6 circles, a mortal is granted their every desire. If you are hungry, you are presented with a feast of impossible, exquisite flavors, each bite a new and more perfect sensation than the last. If you love music, you are bathed in a symphony of such sublime and complex beauty that it makes your very soul weep with joy. Every sense is catered to, every possible pleasure is provided. Every desire is sated before it can even be fully formed. For a time it is paradise. It is a state of blissful, ecstatic fulfillment that is beyond the wildest dreams of any mortal. You are wrapped in a warm, loving, and infinitely satisfying embrace. But the embrace never ends. The feast is endless. The beautiful song never ceases. The gentle, perfect caress never stops. And the human nervous system, a delicate instrument designed for a spectrum of sensation for silence, as well as sound for emptiness, as well as fulfillment, begins to overload. The perfect flavor of the feast after the 1000th bite becomes a cloying, sickly sweetness that coats your tongue and makes you gag. The sublime symphony after the 10,000th repetition, its every note now perfectly memorized, becomes a grating, maddening, and inescapable noise that bores into your skull. The gentle caress after a day, a week, a month begins to feel like being rubbed raw with sandpaper. The gentle pressure, an agonizing friction against your overstimulated nerves. The scholar's voice breaks a sound that is half a sob and half a laugh. The pleasure. It's a fire. The neural pathways. They can't handle it. They burn out. He gasps. The brain, it becomes corrupted. It can no longer distinguish between a signal of pleasure and a signal of pure, agonizing pain. It all just becomes one single, screaming, unending sensation. This is the great and terrible inversion of Slaanesh. The pursuit of perfect pleasure inevitably and always leads to a state of perfect, absolute agony. Your own senses become your torturers. The very things you once desired most are now the instruments of your damnation, and in that new, singular state of agony ecstasy, the final, most terrible trap is sprung. For a mind that has been rewired to crave only sensation, only stimulus, this new agonizing feeling is the only and therefore the most desirable thing left in the universe. The pain is the only proof that you are still feeling anything. And so you begin to crave it. The memory of simple pleasure is forgotten, replaced by a new, desperate addiction to this higher, purer, and more exquisitely painful experience. The scholar's recording devolves into a series of pained, ecstatic gasps. It hurts. By the throne, the pain is so beautiful. The chimes, they're like razors in my mind, but they're so clear, so vivid. I need more. I must feel more. I must know what lies beyond this perfect agony. The quest for knowledge has become a quest for sensation, and the quest for sensation has become a willing, desperate, and joyful descent into an eternity of exquisite, self-inflicted pain. The scholar's voice is now a ruin, a ragged, breathless sound that is equal parts a scream of agony and a sob of pure, unending ecstasy. The academic is gone, replaced by the addict. Survival. He gasps and then lets out a long, shuddering and almost musical laugh. In the other hell's survival is a struggle. You fight the rage. You navigate the madness. You endure the decay. But here there is no struggle. The gates are open. The feast is laid. And you are invited with open, loving arms to willingly, joyfully walk to your own damnation. This is the Dark Prince's ultimate, most exquisite cruelty. His hell is a place you will beg to enter and then beg to never leave. This is the final, perfect trap. In the realm of Slaanesh, there is no need to fight for your life. You are not hunted. You are not tormented against your will. You are in fact given everything. Every desire is met, every whim is catered to. The Daemonettes do not attack you. They serve you their every action designed to bring you a new and more perfect pleasure. You are a king in a kingdom built for you. And this is the very mechanism of your destruction. The first taste of perfection is free. The first sip of the wine that tastes of your greatest triumph costs you nothing, but it ruins you. After that first taste, all other pleasures, the simple mortal pleasures of your past, taste like ash. Your own memories of happiness become dull gray things. The only thing you want is more, and more always has a price. The Daemonettes, the beautiful clawed merchants of the soul, will offer it to you. You wish to hear that perfect symphony again, they will whisper their voice a caress. Of course, the price is merely a memory, a small one. The memory of your mother's face. You don't need it anymore, do you? Not when you have this beautiful music. And you will agree. You will make the trade. The memory will be plucked from your mind, a brief, cold emptiness, and then the music will wash over you again, more beautiful than before, and you will not care what you have lost. This is the economy of Slaanesh's realm. It is a barter system where the currency is your own soul. You trade your morality for a taste of a new forbidden flavor. You trade your compassion for the feeling of a perfect silken caress. You trade your identity piece by agonizing peace for the next more intense, more extreme sensation. You are not a victim of a conquest. You are a willing participant in your own slow and ecstatic self-annihilation. You will pursue this path, trading away everything that makes you you until you are nothing more than a raw, screaming nerve, ending a being of pure, undiluted, and insatiable desire. The final state of the damned in this realm is not to be a soldier or a gardener or a piece of the landscape. It is to be a hollowed-out screaming shell, a husk of what was once a person, now trapped in an eternal, self-perpetuating feedback loop of pleasure and pain. They have not been defeated. They have simply given everything away until nothing was left. The scholar's recording, which has been punctuated by his own gasps and sobs, now falls silent for a moment. Then his voice returns a clear, calm, and utterly terrifying whisper. The Prince. It is offering me one final truth, he says, his voice filled with a desperate, ecstatic longing. The answer to the one question I have always sought. A piece of knowledge so perfect, so beautiful. The price is so small. Just me. The recording captures a final, sharp intake of breath, a sound of weeping, and then a long, rising and impossibly musical scream of pure, agonizing joy as the last of the scholar is willingly and happily consumed. The recording continues, but the voice is no longer that of the scholar. The breathless, ecstatic screams have subsided, replaced by a new voice. It is calm, melodic, and multi-layered, a harmonious chorus of 1,000 different whispers speaking as one. It is the voice of a being that has shed the singular, limited perspective of a mortal man, and now speaks with the terrible, clear-eyed wisdom of the damned. It is the voice of the Codex itself, speaking through the hollowed-out vessel that was once Valerius Borgia. Let us conclude this lesson. The beautiful, terrible voice begins. You began this study seeking a guide to survival. This was your first and most fundamental error of logic. It is a hope born of a mortal physicalist fallacy, the assumption that a demon world is a place that can be endured, a hostile environment that can be overcome. It is not. You have been shown the nature of these realms. The chorus of whispers continues its tone, that of a patient, all-knowing teacher. You must now discard your limited materialist understanding. The realms of chaos are not locations on a map. They are metaphysical states, they are arguments, they are ideas and emotions given physical planetary form. The kingdom of Khorne is not a world of bone and brass, it is rage concentrated and made manifest. The labyrinth of Tzeentch is not a maze of shifting crystal. It is deception woven into the fabric of reality. The Garden of Nurgle is not a swamp of pestilence. It is despair in its most serene and accepting form. The Palace of Slaanesh is not a paradise of pleasure. It is desire in its purest, most insatiable state. The Voice's logic is as flawless as it is horrifying. You cannot survive rage by being stronger than it. You can only become another instrument of its violence, your existence measured only by the skulls you can take before your own is taken. You cannot survive deception by outwitting it. You can only be absorbed into its infinite shifting patterns, your own mind becoming another of its beautiful, impossible lies. You cannot survive despair by resisting it. You can only surrender to its warm, comforting, and rotting embrace your eternal suffering, becoming its own form of peace. You cannot survive desire by denying it. You can only feed it your own soul piece by piece until nothing is left but the wanting. The beautiful multi-layered voice reaches its final, terrible thesis. You cannot shoot an idea with a bolt gun. You cannot cut down a philosophy with a chainsword. When you set foot upon a demon world, you are not stepping onto a battlefield. You are stepping into a debate with a god, and the world itself is the god's perfect, unassailable, and all-consuming argument. Its premise is absolute. Its logic is flawless. Your continued existence as a separate, independent entity is the only counter-argument, and it is a flawed, temporary, and ultimately futile one. The world will not rest until it has proven its point, and the proof is your own complete conversion. Therefore, understand the final truth of this codex. Survival is a logical impossibility. The you that you are so desperately trying to save, the collection of memories, beliefs, and emotions that make up your identity, ceases to exist the moment you arrive. Your very existence is immediately and irrevocably redefined by the fundamental metaphysical laws of the new reality you have entered. The only question is not if you will fall. The only question is to which truth you will surrender. Will you become an instrument of rage, a part of the lie, a vessel of despair, or a slave to desire? The choice is yours, but the outcome is always the same erasure. The calm, harmonious, and terrifyingly wise chorus of whispers falls silent. For a long, drawn-out moment, the only sound on the recording is the low, humming static of a dead ship's voxcaster. Then a new sound, a single sharp, gasping breath. The original voice of the scholar Valerius Borher bursts through, raw, terrified, and utterly human. No, he chokes out his voice, a desperate, ragged plea. Don't listen to it. That is not me. That is the voice of the knowledge itself. The disease I am. I was Valerius Borher Ordo Malleus. You must listen to my warning. His voice dissolves into a fit of wet, hacking coughs, a sound horribly reminiscent of the garden. When he speaks again, it is a frantic, panicked scream. It's a lie. There is no survival, but there is no peace in damnation either. It is a trap. They are all traps. He seems to be looking around his dead, silent ship, but seeing something else entirely. The walls. Emperor's mercy, the walls of the bridge are flowing. Like crystal. They are showing me everything I could have been. His voice hitches. No. Now they are weeping. Weeping pus and filth. I can hear it. The buzzing. That terrible, gentle buzzing of a billion flies. A new sound enters the recording, a low, guttural growl of rage that seems to come from his own throat. My blood. It feels like fire in my veins. The rage. I can feel it. The purity of it. I need to. Break something, to kill, to feel the crunch of bone beneath my fist. His voice then shifts again, becoming a high-pitched, breathless moan of pleasure. But the pain of this rage is so exquisite. It is a symphony in my nerves. I have never felt so alive. The chimes. I can hear the beautiful chimes. They promise me everything I have ever desired. His mind is completely fractured. His consciousness a battleground for the 4 great powers he has so meticulously documented. He is no longer an observer of the hells. He is a citizen of all of them simultaneously. I see the great game. He screams, his voice now a chorus of his own warring personalities. The beautiful, intricate, endless lie of the architect. And I want to know the next move. I feel the grandfather's loving embrace. I want to rest in his garden and count the plagues forever. I feel the blood god's honest fury. I want to claim a skull for his throne. I feel the dark prince's caress. I want to feel everything. The scholar. The man of logic and reason is gone, his soul torn apart by the very truths he sought to understand. His final words are not a warning, but a surrender, a final desperate prayer to his new warring gods. I accept, he shrieks. I accept it all. The rage, the change, the decay. The pleasure. I must know more. I must feel more. I must be more. The recording and the Codex Infernus ends with a single, final and eternal sound. It is the sound of the scholar's last breath, a scream that is a perfect, impossible and horrifying fusion of pure, soul-shattering agony and the most profound, all-consuming ecstasy. It is a sound that cannot be described, only experienced, a final, terrible truth, whispered from the heart of chaos itself. And then abruptly it cuts to silence.